You know, I usually know when I make a video that's going to be triggering to people, and I'll put a trigger warning on it. Usually really deep shadow work type stuff. Sometimes no self in a very direct way. These topics can be really triggering. But recently I released a video that was very triggering to some people that I was surprised by, actually. I was surprised it was triggering. It's called This Is How I Facilitate Awakening. So you can check that out if you want to. But I was really taken aback by why this was so triggering to some people. I couldn't really fully get it. A couple of people one person left really belligerent comments saying I was being disingenuous and just on and on. But I was trying to feel into why is it so triggering for certain people? And I'm still not completely clear on it, but I want to say a few things about the video, or what I was talking about in the video. And that is, when I say that when I'm working with somebody, say I'm working one-on-one or facilitating or whatever, interacting with someone who's waking up, the experience is so clear that I'm not speaking from a position. It's in a sense, it's more obvious than anything in thought is, for sure. It's more obvious than any sort of conceptual belief. It's just very obvious. It's very simple too. It's also the nature of experience that the nature of experience when the experiencer is seen through beyond anatta. This is so obvious. And it's not a problem. It's not dysphoric. It's not uncomfortable. It's not confusing. It's so clear. But the reaction from some people would make me think hearing that is destabilizing somehow. Or maybe it's that at least some mindsets or some psychologies need, they're looking for a stability in spirituality. I think that's what it is. They're hoping to land somewhere themselves that they can count on as a stable platform for their life, with them as the spiritual one, or even the spiritual teacher. I really think that's what the triggering was about for the most part. And I find that so interesting because the tenets of, say, Buddhism, even Advaita Vedanta and so forth, really would argue against this, that you're going to have some stable foundation or point of view from which you teach, or from which you proceed, or from which your spirituality is constructed and propagated. That gets seen through. That tendency to, what you're really doing is you're projecting your ego onto spirituality. It's kind of like a bigger ego. It's like a spiritual ego, right? It's it can be in terms of reifying awareness, reifying consciousness, reifying some kind of perspective, reifying even an insight that you've had, but wanting to stabilize yourself in that. So the reason I'm talking about this is I think it's important to say this periodically, that there will be a part of realization for you that may or may not be super uncomfortable, but it will be uncomfortable to some degree. And it can be a surprise. It's a bit of a surprising turn, because all of the motivations we use initially, or we think we're using to start to drive the spiritual engine, so to speak, to really start investigating our true nature and inquiry and meditation and all of it, even lifestyle changes based on that, going into monasticism, we don't realize, but a lot of our motivations around all of that are ego-based. Even though it's a spiritualized ego, it's still ego-based, right? And you can even have a shift from that perspective. And you can have a shift if you have, a one-pointed approach that becomes very focused, an inquiry practice that gets really down to the root beliefs, a genuine sense of total surrender, and then moving toward that sense and just letting the surrender happen. There are different sort of approaches in a way, but with those shifts, with that first shift, with those approaches and that first shift, you can open up a lot of latitude of your experience of consciousness, a lot of latitude of your experience of identity. But if you don't keep going with it, and what I mean by keep going is let it take you where it needs to take you, you will go into delusion, and you'll try to reify or reformulate some sense of the spiritual one, the spiritual self. Some styles of pointing, like specifically like the Neo-Advaita way of pointing, is actually pretty good at dismantling this and pointing out it is a trap for sure. And so many spiritual people are stuck in that trap. When I say spiritual people, I just mean people who have identified as their spiritual flavor. Now that can look very different. It can look like, I don't know, non-secular flavored spirituality. Can look like very devout monastic, oriented toward Zen, oriented toward Dzogchen, oriented toward whatever, Advaita Vedanta. It can look like those flavors as well, but it's still the same thing. It's a sort of spiritualized ego. It's an ego that has a lot more fluidity and expansiveness and whatever, but there's still a strong tendency. And this tendency is a human tendency. It's rooted in avoiding seeing the deeper shadow stuff. Really the existential fear is a lot of it, existential doubt and dread, and then being able to see like, well, what are my identity structures that were formed around those fears and psychological mechanisms that came into play to stabilize me into the sense of self. Those start getting challenged in deeper realization. Like it or not, it happens. And some people don't like it at all. In fact, there are people out there who want to, they make videos like arguing with everything I say and so forth, because they're trying to, almost like trying to convince people around them that their inability to really directly confront what's at the heart of suffering, at the heart of delusion and so forth, is something that is itself spirituality, right? Again, the spiritual ego is projecting your unrecognized material, your unconscious material out into the world and onto spirituality and onto other people and onto teachers and so forth. And so all of that itself has the flavor of a certain kind of stability. It's trying to stabilize in a self, in a spiritual self, in a holier than thou self, in a even sometimes an empty self. It can happen in that way as well. But it has a very distinct energy signature of trying to stabilize. It's trying to stabilize itself. It's trying to be somewhere. It's trying to hold a position. It's trying to hold an inherent view. It's trying to reify through the sense of self that there is a way that things are, not wanting to see that there actually is not. Probably because that gives the mind, the thinking process, nothing to do. It literally just gives it no anchor. It gives it no foundation or anchor point, so it can't even start to proceed into a sense of separation, duality, self, other, problem, solutions, time, past, present, future, separation, and so forth. And that can be very unsettling. Maybe it's karmic, but I do find the vast majority of people who watch my videos are really good with this. They're clear that something deeper is really starting to go on after awakening. I've said it this way before. Waking up is like escaping from the matrix, or it's like waking up out of the delusion of matrix. But what you don't realize is you're in a second. You're like in another matrix. It's a different kind of matrix. It's a sneakier one. It's a subtler one. However, when someone's awake, and the more awake they are, the more they fight that second insight, that second big rug pull, the more obvious it gets, actually, right? You really have to work to fight this. You really have to work to fight the insights, because it's not something you're doing. It's reality unveiling itself. It's reality showing you what it is. And a lot of the human mind and the human collective mind and the massive delusion and all of it doesn't want to see it. It just doesn't. So anyway, Buddhism is very clear on it. Buddha in the suttas and with many, 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 many pointers, very clear on this. But that's what I think was the most triggering for some people. Many people loved it. Many people had comments. I'm looking at them now that really resonated with what I said. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to point out, because I'm fascinated with psychology. I'm fascinated with human behavior and human mindsets and human belief systems and how they play into fixation and all of it. So I thought it would be interesting to unpack it a little bit. But I do want to read one other comment, and this is along maybe a bit of different lines. It says, Angelo, it's confusing when you say that you're not trying to, quote, make anything work, or that you don't care if it works, or you don't know why it works. So there's more to the comment. I'll read it. But First of all, when I speak this way, it's a very direct way of speaking, meaning I'm talking about this experience so directly that I'm not surprised at all that it leads to confusion of the mind. So confusion is a mental confusion. Understand that. In direct experience, there is no confusion. Direct experience doesn't get confused. It just is what it is. So if there's confusion, it's totally okay. That is your mind trying to make sense of what I'm saying, and I'm saying there's nothing for your mind to make sense of. It's a simple statement. It's a simple truth, but the mind does not like it because it gets confused. It's like, no, I need something to grab. I need something to orient to. So it gets a little shaken up. So it starts to scramble. Yeah. So that's my answer to the part about confusion. Like, I understand, I empathize. It's okay. Feel it. Feel the confusion. Drop down into your body. Feel what's underneath that confusion. It's fear, an unsettledness, an uncomfortable feeling, an uncomfortable sensation, maybe restlessness. That's great. That's shadow work. That's how this works, right? I say things and sometimes it points to a sense of, clarity and expansiveness and whatever. And sometimes it drops you into your shadow, and both are great. No problem, right? So let me read the rest. It seems like you're stripping away all sense of intention or purpose from your work. No, I'm not stripping anything away. I'm not adding to my work. I'm not stripping anything away. And I don't even really feel like I have a body of work, to be honest. I have a YouTube channel. There's a bunch of videos on there, but I don't even remember what most of them are about. So I don't have any body of anything. I only have this, whatever this is. And I don't even have it. It's just this. Yeah. Very, very simple. Experience gets so simple that, again, the mind can't make anything of it. So yeah, I'm not trying to deconstruct something or strip something away from work or purpose or anything. There's no purpose, really. There's just this, right? The universe comes forward however it wants to. Turns out it's pretty benign, but it's not me doing it. And there's nothing to do with an intention behind it. There's nothing to do with a purpose behind it, or trying to orient to a purpose and stay coherent with a purpose. There's no sense of that at all. So I'm not, it's just so you understand that. Isn't this swinging the pendulum too far in the direction of no one doing nothing or no self? No, I don't think so. Yeah. If anything, I emphasize the other side of things more because I know no self can be so triggering for people. And yet I know many, many people now who have realized no self, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's crystal clear. So I can't not ever talk about it. So I do know this stuff can be triggering, as I mentioned before, and I'm usually careful about the trigger warnings and so forth, but there are going to be things you hear me say that can be unsettling. But again, just go to the emotion. Check for yourself instead of trying to make a mental model of like, is it more this or more that? Like, and trying to find the comfort zone for yourself of like, is this message too much this or too much that? Don't worry about that. Feel into it. Just feel. That's it. Feel into what's happening for you. And if my teaching or my pointing or whatever isn't your style, that's fine too, of course. But specific to this, to say that I have no particular intention in immediate experience is not swinging in any direction. It's just obvious. It's so obvious. Everything is coming forth so beautifully, so perfectly. And here's the thing. You might think you want to have an intention. You might think you want to have a direction, but that's dissociation. It is ultimately dissociating into a mental version of yourself, a mental version of your life, a mental version of morals and paths and all of it. When you see that, then you really just want to be here, right? When you really see that all of that is just taking you into your mind, right? Turning your direct experience, which is raw, unfiltered, unmitigated, so obvious, so clear, so bright, intimate. It's trying to turn that into a mental process and saying, it's like this, it's like that, it has this purpose, it has that purpose, or this direction or that direction. See that. Once you see that that's what the mind's doing, it's just trying to get your attention into thought, then it's like, oh no, you just want to come back here because it feels so good to be here. It feels so finally relief here. The doubt is gone. The need to run from anything is gone. It's just so full on. It's so beautiful and so full, so empty, full. It's however you want to say it. So, yeah. So I wouldn't say there's a pendulum swing in any direction. It's very clear that the experience of intimacy, or maybe I could say fullness, and the experience of non-inherency, emptiness, they're literally the same thing. Yeah. Okay. And then it says, I hold the belief that you must have some bias, intention, orientation toward helping other people awaken. Otherwise, why write a book, make a video, or retreats? All due respect to you, like I'm being as direct as I can, and your comment was respectful and genuinely curious. So I'll just be as simple as I can about this. But that's you projecting your intention onto me. Like you might look at me and go, well, how can you do all that without an intention? But that's just because there's part of you that still believes you're doing everything because of an intention. When you see that you're not, this will be obvious. And you'll even see that you don't want to do everything because of an intention, because of a goal, because of an outcome. Because if you're doing that, you're living for the future, right? That's just more of the ego's poison, telling you, like, always promising, never delivering. That's what thought does, right? When you see through that, oh, yeah, it is just this. Very simple. And like I said, it just turns out that as how this comes forward tends to be reasonably benevolent, turns out. When people wake up, especially beyond no self, and then they've done the shadow work, they tend to be very naturally oriented to liberating others. But in a personal way, experientially, they won't say that. They won't even see that. Most of them would say, like, I don't feel like I'm saying anything special or doing anything special or helping anyone. Because you don't. It's just this, right? I'm just speaking, words coming, body moving, etc. So the transmission actually is in the lack of all of those layers of identity that are false, including the layers of purpose and meaning and future, principles, thinking. All those layers can just be gone, and you can live so easily. And it's what you want. It's what everyone really wants under everything else, I find. It's just that there's a lot of layers of avoidance of deep emotional material that you really you're going to have to go through to get to the place of true peace. Yeah. Truly being liberated from all of those delusional tendencies, avoidance patterns. I mean, on and on and on, right? Yeah. Okay. Then it says, I get that you can exist in one moment without any intention. Yeah, it's not really so much about existing or something. As a personal, it's not a personal thing. It's, yeah. There's not a sense of I exist here in this moment or something like that. It's just this. I could call it this moment. I could call it presence. I could call it, there's nothing to call it, but it's just what it is, right? There's no one apart from it, experiencing it, calling it this or that. That's obvious. Largely because there's no sense of separation. Well, I should say it's largely supported in explanation by the fact that there is no sense of separation. So how could there be a separate one doing something? That can kind of guide you into what I'm talking about, maybe experientially or even maybe logically. So there's no one here, there's no actor here with its own special agenda in reference to everything else in the world. And you don't want there to be, because as soon as there is, there's suffering, right? As soon as you feel separate from everything else in the world, of course you're going to suffer, right? So all the purpose, meaning, principles, all that, thinking, those are all justifications to avoid the discomfort of believing you're separate. Until you go through those layers, you'll never actually confront the illusion of separation directly anyway. Once you do, you have a very good chance of dissolving it, seeing through it, seeing what's what, living out of it, living out of truth. And yeah, it's a pretty good deal. So I get that you can exist in one moment without any intention, doership, or purpose, but to be consistent with something must require an intentional commitment. No, it doesn't. Yeah, no. I don't know how to explain that to you, but just look around you, watch what happens. Look how the world functions. Like does an animal have a commitment to chase its dinner? Or does an animal have a commitment to nurture its young? No, it just does it, right? It's not thinking in these conceptual ways. It's not thinking in abstract ways. You do all kinds of things all day long that you don't have a intentional commitment to, probably. Even though there are certain things that you probably believe you have an intentional commitment to. And when I say believe, I just mean The thought is after the fact. You care about what you care about, but you didn't decide at some point. Like, what should I care about? I can care about this, 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 this. I care about this and this a little bit, not a lot, and this I don't care about. Like, those characteristics weren't something you consciously chose through thought, right? So a lot of your question, and it's a good question, a good series of questions, but a lot of your questions really not so much about deeper realization or anatta or whatever. It's really more about seeing through the nature of thought and how the mind just constantly occupies itself with abstraction, essentially. So anyway, hopefully I wasn't too direct or whatever, but I wanted to answer your question because it's a good question, and I'm sure it comes up for others. The last thing I want to say about it is I wouldn't worry too much about the deeper stuff or the things I say about no self-realization and so forth. Early on, I would really just focus on consciousness. Focus on establishing a practice, a meditative practice, calming your mind. Focus on, like, I have playlists about all this. That's why I have like the mind identification playlist on thoughts, consciousness, awakening approaches, those kinds of things. The downside to YouTube is that it just randomly, I can show a video, but it's going to show it to randomly everybody. So I make a video about no self, it's going to show it to everyone. If I make a video about like early stage stuff, it's going to show it to everyone. So that's why I have to organize things into playlists. Like, my videos are just going to go out to everybody when I make them, but that's the nature of YouTube. It's also the beauty of YouTube because it markets this for me. I don't have to pay for marketing. It's just, if I make content that people want to see, it just shows it to everybody. So sometimes this does happen where the video hits when maybe you're not quite ready to work with that kind of insight or whatever. But it's okay. It's all kind of pointing to the same stuff ultimately. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful.